Okay, and I'm going to start by having each of you just give a quick introduction of yourself and of your platform so we know a little bit about what you do. Chelsea, we can start with you and just work our way down the line. Does that work?
Sure.
Thanks.
Thank you. So hello, my name is Chelsea Bear. I'm a white woman. I'm wearing black pants, a white V-neck with a black blazer over it, and I'm sitting in a mobility scooter. So my platform is my name, Real Chelsea Bear. Bear is my actual last name. A lot of people think I'm joking. And I have cerebral palsy, so I've had my disability my entire life. Growing up, it was obviously very much a part of my life, but not something that I proactively really talked about with my friends and family. I also was the only person in my friends and family that had a disability. So around probably mid-20s, I had this light bulb moment that I just wanted to stop feeling like everything about me was uncomfortable to other people. You know, you can tell when you walk into another room or when you walk into a room and everyone's just kind of looking at you and they don't know, do they ask questions, do they not ask questions? I'm starting my professional career, I'm dating, and all these things are coming up as I am meeting new people. So I started sharing online, really just to help people realize that conversations around disability don't need to be uncomfortable. And my platform just grew out of very unexpectedly. So I've been doing this about 3 years full time. Before I used to do public relations, so it's been really helpful now being on the other side of things. I'm on pretty much every platform, and I share really what it's like living with cerebral palsy. And over the past 2.5 years, a huge aspect of my content has shifted to accessible travel. And it's a topic I'm very passionate about. I think I understand, like many people in the room, the anxieties that go into planning a trip, traveling somewhere, not knowing if once you get there, you'll actually be able to enjoy and do things. And yeah, so I'm really excited to be here and be on this panel and for this conversation.
Sassy, you're up next.
Oh, sorry. Joys of being blind. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Sassy Wyatt. I am a very petite white woman. I am 4'9". I have a pixie cut, bright red hair, bright orange nails, and today I am wearing I think it's a sky blue, we call it a play suit in the UK, with daisies on it, and I'm wearing my trusty sneakers that are white and blue or green, I can't remember. So for me, I am totally blind, but I haven't always lived that way. I was born non-disabled, and the concept of disability was not foreign to me, but when I became disabled at the age of 7, I realized that I pretty much was the only one in my circle that had a disability. My parents were very good at teaching me not to interact with people with guide dogs and how to speak to a person in a wheelchair without being condescending or rude. And that all came from their lived experiences of working in care homes and being public facing. So that really helped me. Because I then became a person with lived experience of disability, I then saw firsthand the uncomfortableness that people had around disability. And I'm pretty feisty, and so is my mom. So when I was a wheelchair user for 8 years of my childhood, me and my mom would either glare at them or say, "Take a picture, it lasts longer." So, so from there, I then transitioned from a wheelchair into living with a visual impairment because of the great medication that I'm on. And then I started to share from 2015 about my life with a disability. And it all came about because as a person using a long white cane, I was introduced to the world in a different way that I was introduced as a wheelchair user. And people are kind. I get to see the beauty of humanity every day when I travel. And it came from a place of curiosity, and I'm very well open to having these conversations and educating others. But it was the questions like, where's your carer? Or where's your guide dog? Or one of my favorites, how did you get dressed in the morning? So it stemmed from that and showcasing that blind people especially can and do live very happy, functional lives, especially if we lose our vision and we weren't born that way. There is a trauma. There is a space and a time that it's stressful and it feels heartbreaking, but then you get through the other end. And so I wanted to help be that voice for other blind and visually impaired people to realize that life goes on after sight loss and we can be happy and fulfilled. And then because I was sharing my voice online, I then realized that my biggest passion was travel. And I wanted to showcase again that blind people can and do travel. So that's where Blind Girl Adventures began. And I've been doing social media and my own website for 9 years. I don't actually have the biggest platforms, but I have a very engaged audience. And that to me is what matters, because if I'm in a room of one person and my voice and my message gets spread, that's more important to me than having 10,000 likes on a post that nobody's ever going to take any notice of and actually implement any of the things I'm talking about. So yeah, it's a real honor to be here today on this panel with everyone. And I feel quite awestruck actually for the people that I'm surrounded by. So thank you for having me.
Hey y'all, my name is Jessica Jordan Ping. I go by The Rolling Explorer online, and I am a white woman with brown blonde hair, and I'm wearing a maroon sweater with black pants, a black boot, and a maroon headband, just like Blair Waldorf. Important for me to say that. So nice to be here with you all today. I started The Rolling Explorer about 3 months after I graduated from the University of Notre Dame, and I did so partly because I had experienced so much discrimination while I was in school, and it kind of became a way for me to learn about the disability community. I grew up in a very small town, so I didn't have a whole lot of background or experience within the community. I didn't have a lot of people that I could connect with in that way, and so getting online kind of introduced me to the disability community. I spent a lot of that first year learning and unlearning a lot of ableism, and then from there began to share my own story and my own journey. Now, I intended for the platform to be all about travel, The Rolling Explorer. It sells itself. However, the pandemic hit, and suddenly I had to change strategy. And so I'm honestly really glad that that happened, because now I call myself a lifestyle influencer, but realistically, I just talk about my life online and everything that that encompasses, from advocacy and education to travel, lifestyle, beauty, fashion, whatever it may be. And I feel like that is a great thing that I would have really appreciated growing up, having that representation, having somebody that was so candidly honest about every aspect of their life with a disability and being seen in that way. And so I'm really, really grateful to have a platform where I get to do that, hopefully for the upcoming generation. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. Nice to meet y'all.
Guys, I'm here to go. It's a good day, mom. So we all downstairs. I just on time as a widow. Like on time about it.
That's right. We're Houston and Katie Vandergriff, and we're Downs and Towns is our platform. I think the way that we started, when Facebook was kind of becoming a thing, Houston has 2 older sisters, and I really think they just wanted to get onto Facebook early. But they said, we'd like to share how cool Houston is. You know, people see a disability, and again, it's an awkward time, whatever, and like, we just want to show that he's a normal kid. And so we started with Houston Vandergriff on Facebook. That went into Instagram. Yep, and Houston does travel photography, and we started with a class at the University of Tennessee on the business of photography, and the teacher had everybody break up into groups and say, what is it that makes you unique? And so Houston and I are looking at each other, and we're going, well, we like to travel, yeah, we like to take pictures, and the teacher came over, and he's like, dude, you've got Down syndrome. And Houston was like, what? Because as a family, we never even talked about it. Yeah, it was just not a big deal. It was, Houston's Houston. But Downs and Towns was born that day, and we're on TikTok and, LinkedIn and Instagram, Facebook, anything that his sisters could get started in, we've done that. So we chronicle life as a typical person, just happens to have Down syndrome.
Hey everyone, I'm Alex Stratikis. I run Autism Adventures Abroad. I am a 30-year-old white male. teal shirt and blue chinos, white shoes. I got into accessible tourism maybe 4 years ago now. It was actually during the pandemic. I realized during lockdown that there wasn't much in the way of representation of actually autistic individuals within the tourism space. And it seemed like a real gap in the market. I had a lot of valuable insights, I felt. I'd already been to, I guess, 40 countries, primarily solo. And the autistic people that I knew previously, who I'd engaged with and were friends with, felt like I had a lot of knowledge that I could share. So that's how I got into that, and it sort of developed from there. I now do consultancy work as well, and hoping to move into group tours eventually next year. So that's something I'm excited about. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Can you tell us a little bit about your audience? So who's following along for your journey? Are they mostly other disabled people? Do you feel like you have more a platform for raising awareness among people who have not experienced disability? We'll start with Chelsea, then Sassy, and work our way down again.
Yeah, great question. And I think for me, it's definitely a mix of both that you just said. So I think I first started growing and attracting other people with cerebral palsy because that's my disability. And I think CP itself is so unique where it affects everyone so differently. And people can have multiple disabilities. So cerebral palsy is a big part of my following, but also people with all types of disabilities. And I notice that a lot in the engagement that I get. A lot of people that know someone or are, someone that they love has a disability, even if they don't themselves. And then people who are just along for the awareness side of it, following along with my life and the advocacy and awareness that I sprinkle into everything I do. So a nice mix, I'd say.
For me, it's quite interesting because each platform has a completely different audience. So my most engaged platform is Instagram, and that is 25 to 45-year-old men and women, a mixture of disabled and non-disabled people, and they follow me for travel advice and information, and then some follow for my advocacy work, and then others who are blind or live with other disabilities follow me. And we create community together. So it's a lot of back and forth in the DMs and making sure that people feel seen and heard. And yeah, it's a real privilege to say that I have a platform that connects with people around the world.
Like everybody else that has already spoken, mine is very mixed, I would say. I am actually very disappointed in all of the platforms that they don't list out more specific demographics than what they currently do. So I don't have an idea of like personal numbers, but I do know that it is pretty mixed based on the comments that I get, based on the DMs that I get, and I feel very honored as well to be able to both educate people that are not in the disability space yet, and those that are, and have a voice for them and help share their message and connect with them.
Me too as well, and I love it that about. I mean, when you watch her in that sounds in down here and so yeah.
Yeah, our audience is also mixed, and it's really turned into a global audience, which is kind of cool. Several of the TikTok videos that we did, one had 25 million views, and we saw it, and there's no speaking with it. It was just a text, but we've seen it translated into a Spanish text. We've seen it translated into a Turkish text. We were trending in Iran for a long time, and so it's been a cool thing to get to reach people around the world.
So yeah, copying everyone else, also very mixed. I don't have the stats on exactly, but yeah, I guess people who engage with my content, wide range of backgrounds. I've met some amazing autistic people who love travel through my content on social media and on the website. Also other neurodivergent individuals, ADHD, particularly families with autistic children or spouses. So yeah, a lot of great feedback, and I've met some very cool people because of that. So.
And I think this is absolutely fabulous because you are reaching the disability community with things that they need to see, right? Of where you can go and what you can do and things that they might not be seeing other places. But in that, you're also automatically raising awareness for the world and raising representation, right? You're showing, okay, look, we are here and we are doing all of the things. Similar experience, I write for families traveling with disabilities, and I have a blog that is only going really to families who are looking to plan accessible travel, but then on Instagram, right, it's the whole gamut of people who are just there for the travel experiences. Can you share with your travel experiences, what are the barriers that you typically encounter? What are things that you're looking for? In the world of accessible travel, where do we need improvement? What are the barriers or obstacles that you face?
I think one of the biggest things, it's cliche, but empathy. I think that a lot of people are quick to say no, they can't do something, or no, they can't make a little accommodation, when I feel like if they just try, I mean, in certain instances, of course, more things need to be behind it. But I think a lot of the issues I face is just dealing with people within the hospitality industry that are not willing to have a conversation or not willing to listen. So I think that's kind of a big one, just shifting people's attitudes around approaching disability and realizing that we're people and we have needs that need to be met and heard and listened to. And even if I can't get to a specific solution of the thing I need, I think it means the most when someone goes out of their way to at least try. So I think that's one of the most important things to me when traveling new places, beyond being able to actually get into a building, you know, if it has a ramp or stairs or something. But I'd say that's a big one.
I would definitely say, as a blind person who uses a screen reader, it's about your websites. It's about your social media. It's about making them fully accessible and making sure that people see themselves represented within that. So for me, I do all my research online, like most of us do. And if a website isn't accessible, if a landing page doesn't have an accessibility page, if a destination doesn't actually show disabled people, then I'm put off by putting all my effort into there. However, as I did say at the beginning, as someone that travels sometimes solo, I do get to see the beauty of this world every single day when I travel. So for me, I get both sides. I get an inaccessible website where I don't feel included or accepted, and then I meet people that bend over backwards to make my stay, make my crossing of the street or my bus experience the most enjoyable thing that's ever happened to me that day. So I think for me, it's genuinely about, if we talk about websites and social media, it's definitely about representation and making things more accessible.
Similarly to Sassy, I would say, for me, it's about transparency online and making it easier to book things by having awareness of your level of accessibility. I said it yesterday when I was up here on a panel, but I would rather know very, very clearly if you're not accessible, and I'd rather you own that than me show up to your space and it not work for me. That's just how I would prefer it, and I don't think that that's asking a whole lot. I think that all websites, all social media should have a dedicated space about accessibility, and it should be very, very clear what you offer, what you have, and I think that in and of itself would save me so much time in research. It would save me so much time going through reviews, trying to sort through if anybody else has ever traveled there in a wheelchair. It would save me time having to call locations. It would save me money having to call international locations. It would be very, very helpful to have that very clearly labeled out on every platform that you're on.
And I guess for us, we don't generally have the physically accessible barriers, but we don't read a lot of information. You know, we kind of go through things quickly. And so any way that things can be presented visually, not just in a long list of writing for whatever it may be, is beneficial to us. But what we've also found, and we say, you know, an accommodation for one can benefit everybody. And so even though we may not travel in a wheelchair, we always have wheeled luggage. And so if you've got a ramp, we are happy to have that. And so I think anything that can be done to just make things easier to understand and easy to use is a benefit for us.
I think piggybacking off of that, I would say, yeah, for me, communication is a big thing. Yeah, I think when I'm overwhelmed and overstimulated, I could probably come across as very sketchy, which a lot of staff maybe are confused by. And generally, yeah, I think if staff sort of have more knowledge in the tourism industry on how to deal with neurodivergent individuals, that it would benefit not just those individuals, but everyone within the space. So yeah, who's visiting those destinations and locations. Yeah.
So this is pretty eye-opening because I think a lot of the concerns with accessibility are, okay, how do we afford to make all of these big changes to our buildings, our infrastructure, whatever? And we're hearing things like empathy and information, that some of these things cost nothing, right? So training our staff and making sure that we're prepared and just so that we know how to be kind to all people. Can we talk about how all of these fine folks can work with you? So what exactly do you do? If you're working with a destination, what does that look like? What are you doing for them or with them? And I know this was the next question talking about cost, but if you want to throw that in with this, like what does it look like to create a package if someone is trying to hire you?
Yeah, so for me, historically, I've done kind of case-by-case basis what a specific destination is looking for. Social media being my primary platform, I make a lot of short-form videos. I'm starting to get into long-form on YouTube a bit. But typically, I will do videos like X accessible things to do in San Francisco, and then visually show myself on my mobility scooter doing these things so my audience can visually see what's possible for them. So I'll do a mix of either Reels and TikToks or YouTube Shorts, coupled with stories so I could get a little bit more in depth. I've also found it really valuable to contribute blog posts that the DMO can put on their own website for SEO purposes, kind of going even more in depth about accessible things that I did while I was there and my recommendations and stuff like that. So it's really a mixture and what specifically the DMO needs. I know a lot of you guys need the true, authentic experiences and all the assets that come with it, including photos for your website. So kind of a variety of everything that I'm able to provide.
I'm quite similar to Chelsea, as in I do a case-by-case basis, and I have a deep dive on what the destination is looking for first of all. I love to, of course, showcase accessibility, but for me, it's about representation as well. So I don't want you to fear that if something isn't fully accessible to a blind person, that I can't do that excursion, because I'm quite likely to throw myself into anything anyway, but also I just want people to know that they can do it too. And that's back to where the information comes from, is it's okay to actually say there is a flight of stairs into the building, or, for example, we do not offer Braille menus, because then I know, and that's great. So then I break it down into what's required, what they need, and then I can offer on again, the case-by-case basis. So some people will only just want one Instagram reel. And then some people will want the whole package of short-form video content across all the platforms that I use, and then a blog post, and then maybe some consultancy on top of that. So again, each thing becomes like different fees, and it's a lot of time and energy. And as someone that is totally blind, I will say right now, that most, if not every social media platform is not fully accessible to blind people. I require a lot of help, and I'm fortunate that I do have support in the form of being able to hire that help, but I am one of very few people that can afford to do that. And so the social media platforms need to make themselves fully accessible so that anyone with a disability can and want to create content in an authentic way to themselves, so that they can then feel that they are fully represented. And then it gets down to the nitty-gritty of, when it comes to consultancy, how much are we deep diving? Did you want a case study review? Did you want to look at an accessible building? Did you want to look at the infrastructure? And again, I'm happy to do all of those things, but it costs a lot of effort and energy and physicality for me, with both my blindness and other physical disabilities that I have. So sometimes I may charge a bit more because I'm having to recover at least 2 days after doing 3 days of work. So that's how I do it.
Very similarly, I work on a case-by-case basis. It depends on the company. It depends on the budget. I'm usually very flexible with rates and what I'm willing to offer, and as long as the person that I'm working with is flexible as well, like we can come to some sort of agreement. I'm very lucky to work with a manager, so she helps me kind of navigate different levels of workload and deliverables. As somebody who works online, a lot of what I do is content-based, similarly to the previous two speakers here. And but that's not all I do. I do a lot of consulting work as well. I actually trained to be an accessibility consultant when I lived in the UK, so I do a lot of behind-the-scenes work, helping companies and brands and destinations make their spaces more accessible, make their websites more accessible, that sort of thing. And just generally speaking, like I do speaking work, I've done modeling work, and everything is packaged differently. It really depends on what somebody will reach out and request, and trying to work within, like I said, their budget, get what I am worth, and make it all make sense. So, yes.
Like my job as well, like, I mean, we'll get things to do, like, baby, what do you do? Like, and there's everything else to do that.
Yep, that's right. We basically just like to have fun. But when Houston was born, the geneticist told us the thing about Down syndrome is they wear it on their face. And so as a new mom, you know, I went home and, yeah, I cried for 2 days. I thought that was a terrible thing for her to say. But what we have found is it's such a blessing because people see Down syndrome, and that in print or in video or whatever, it can represent an intellectual disability. And Houston told me yesterday he doesn't have an intellectual disability. He's got Down syndrome. But that's right, yeah. Visually, you know, autism and deafness and blindness is quite often hard to portray in a print. But you see a person with Down syndrome, and that kind of is a category that you can actually share that you're reaching as a client base. And he's been signed with the talent agent since he was 6 years old, and he got way more work than his sisters did because a lot of organizations want to have that. You know, they want to showcase that they are being disability friendly, whatever that may mean. And so we do a wide range of things too, like everybody else. But it's turned out to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, so I feel like I'm copying everyone else again, but yeah, it's very much dependent on the client and what their deliverables are. Again, I'm very flexible. I would see what they come back with and sort of take it from there, maybe meet them in the middle, offer some other services. I also do consultancy as well. I guess travel writing is where I started, but I also love doing photography. Yeah, obviously it's very hard to sort of portray autism, I guess, visually. So I sort of, like to go more in depth in my writing based on my own experiences at that destination or attraction. I think that's where I could really focus on, my own experiences and how those attractions are using accessibility to help autistic people travel there. So, yeah.
Thank you. Since I'm not on this panel, I feel like I can take a moment to advocate for influencers as well. And think about what you are getting when you work with any one of them, that you're getting a writer, you're getting a photographer, you're getting a videographer, you are getting a model, all in one package deal. So think about the value that they're bringing to you. It's not just DEI, it's marketing overall. And they're creating content for your site, as well as then sometimes putting things on their own sites and on their social media, so they are extending your reach and your audience while also giving you the content that you need for your own page. So it's really a pretty inclusive deal. And I know some people have the mindset of, well, why will you not just travel for free? Well, because they also have to pay their bills when they get home, and this is their full-time job. And so if they're working for you 3 days, well, they could be paid for those 3 days because those are work days for them. And then when they go home, it's hours and hours of content creation and writing and pouring into that. So it is something that is worth everybody's time. Okay, we'll switch it up, Alex, and we'll go backwards so that you're not repeating after everyone.
Give it the hard question.
And Sassy brought this up a little bit. When you encounter an obstacle on a trip, and I know this is something that makes DMOs nervous to have somebody on social media coming out to their destination. Okay, what if you get here and it's not fully accessible, it's not fully inclusive, you have a bad experience? Are you going to shame them on social media? Now they're worried, okay, we have this person with hundreds of thousands of followers and they just had a lousy experience. What are they going to say about us? How do you handle a negative experience when you're working with someone?
I would say I haven't had any really negative experiences so far in the work I do. I would say as long as the client is transparent, first of all, I think that would avoid a lot of disappointment when you actually get to the place that you're going. So I think that would avoid that. Yeah, I guess that would be the main thing. You know, if, as I can't remember who, but someone said earlier, if you aren't fully accessible, just be open about it. I don't think anyone's going to be judging you for it. You know, there's always constructive criticism on ways in which you can improve, and maybe something that you haven't thought about before through our consultancy services, or yeah, I think as long as you're transparent, there's no shame in that.
And we've never had a bad experience. We kind of just go through life on the bright side of things. But I guess I'd like to mention now, we have been invited by a company to lead trips for them. And so far we've been to Egypt and we've been to Costa Rica, and we're putting together a trip to Ecuador in February, if anyone's interested. But the company that invited us to do this saw the need for inclusive travel and for people to feel comfortable traveling with different types of disabilities. And it's been really interesting to see who signs up for our trips, because a lot of times it's single moms with their child who may be afraid to travel out of the country, so it's not just disabilities that can be uncomfortable or can have difficult situations. It could be lots of different life experiences that you deal with. And so I think what you get from this panel up here, which is incredible, and it is awesome to be a part of, but you do get a lot of lived experience and probably a lot of really good feedback in any direction, whatever that may be. And so I think that's been something we've been able to do, and again, just have a lot of fun.
I just have fun time, man. Me and her and like, well, you're like, you that's so yeah.
One thing that I've built my platform off of, I think, is being authentic online. And so if I did have a bad experience, I wouldn't lie about it, but I also probably just wouldn't talk about it, to be quite honest with you. If it's one of those situations, I think that's where you lie by omission and you just don't talk about it. But that said, I've never had a bad experience while working with a company in that sort of capacity, because typically, to me, a big part of working with companies is having a really strong relationship where there is transparency and there is a lot of planning and there is a lot of communication up front. So before I get somewhere, I know exactly what I'm supposed to do. I don't want any confusion once I touch down on the ground and not know what the deliverables are, not know what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't want somewhere to not be accessible to me. That would defeat the purpose of me being there trying to showcase the accessibility. So I think very similarly to what Alex said, like the information up front is like going to be key in that situation to making sure that everybody is very honest with each other about what the deliverables are, what is expected, what the accessibility looks like, and that way everybody can just be happy, we can have a great relationship, and it'll be very easy.
That's right.
I have a really open dialogue at the beginning with the destination, and I explain that there will be content that may make them uncomfortable because I'm authentic, and I want my audience, especially those who are blind, to feel like they are getting the true information. So I say it at the beginning, and then I let them depending on the contract as well, it's really interesting because some contracts I've literally signed where it's like, you're not allowed to say negative things about the company. You are not allowed to say that you've had a bad experience. So I'm like, okay, so we either have to change the contract or I don't say what I mean and my audience doesn't get the real answer. So it becomes a bit of a negotiation there. But what I mean by having a bad experience is genuinely mostly to do with the infrastructure. So for example, I worked with the New York Tourism Board last year, what an honor that was, and I did a video about how I didn't find crossing the roads in New York accessible or safe. That went pretty viral. But I told them ahead of time, and I gave them the heads up, and I explained, and I said, this is going to do well, because unfortunately, sometimes negativity does really well on social media. And then what they said was, thank you for letting us know. We'll take it on board. Obviously, as a tourism board, we can't change the infrastructure of the lighting and how to cross the road safely, but we'll feed it back to the contacts we do have, and that's all that matters to me, is that we're all working together as a collective to try and keep pushing for the better infrastructure of accessibility for everybody.
Yeah, that's hard to follow.
Sorry.
No, and similar to Alex, I'm going to echo everyone and everything that they said. Very much aligned with my approach as well. Excuse me. I think that it's important for me as well to be authentic with my audience, but I also, similar to Jessica, I'm not. If something is that bad, I don't feel the need to go on social media and talk negatively, especially if I'm not having those conversations with the people directly that I was working with to bring that feedback back to their teams or their partners. And I think visiting anyone, it's a big production. While the DMO is responsible for it, you need to tap into your partners. You need to tap into different experiences and relationships that you have within your own cities. And I think one isolated incident shouldn't reflect an entire city's, experience, and that's never the way that I would approach it either. I also have not had a negative experience in a way that I feel ruins an entire trip, and I think it's also really important, the planning and open communication before a hosted trip, just to talk about what are the things that I think would resonate best with my audience, what would give me the best content, the best experience that I can then share with my followers as well. But at the end of the day, I'm a professional, you guys are professionals, and I think it's really important to just build those relationships and be able to provide feedback after the fact if there is any, and then you guys being open to it. And I think that's an important part of any relationship or contract or partnership that I were to have. So.
I love that. And two sides on that. First of all, the authenticity is vital. This is how they've built these communities, right? People are looking for that authenticity. Nobody wants a prepackaged, this is accessible, blah, 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 and it's not, right? That's going to turn everybody off. You don't want false representation. I mean, like Jessica was saying, that's the most important thing, right? You don't want to present something as accessible and then you get there and it's not. That's a much bigger turnoff than just being transparent. Also, if you are nervous about having someone out to review accessibility, be transparent about that. What is it that you're nervous about? So communicate ahead of time, right? Okay, we're not really sure how accessible this thing is. Could you tell us? And that can be a personal feedback thing when they're done with their trip of, here are the things that we encountered that maybe weren't so accessible that you could improve on. And it's outside of your package of marketing, representation, whatever. It's just, here's feedback that we would really like so that we can improve and do better. Before we move into questions, I know sometimes things pop into your head as we're going through. Is there anything that you want to add about yourself, your platform, anything before we open it up? Okay, then I think we are going to open the floor for questions for this fabulous team. Lily, you're going to use this microphone?
Or one of these mics. We're out of mics. Perfect.
Thank you.
Great job, everybody. I think this was a great discussion. I have one question related to content. Interested in hearing about if you've got one piece of content you're especially proud of that was a great example about the time when you had multiple million views and those kinds of things. What type of content do you think that has really resonated? If they have an example, I'd love to hear it.
I think the content where I'm sharing experiences that I feel like might be unique to me, and then it turns out other people go through it as well. I think a weird example, kind of, is one time I did a video talking about how when I have coffee, I realize sometimes my muscles get like tighter. And I just casually talked about it online, and then I got so many messages of other people with CP saying they never realized that link. Same with like jumpiness. I experienced that a lot. I didn't know it was a CP thing. I thought it was like my personality. So I think just like sharing kind of unique things like that, it turns out other people relate as well.
I have a couple of ones where the videos have gone viral mostly because everyone loves dogs. But this is where the authenticity comes into play when it comes down to content, because I have one that's done very well on every social media platform that I posted it, and I'm standing in a London Underground station. I'm waiting at the gates. I believe that my guide dog was distracted by the dog that she passed, and so I'm telling her to find the gate, to find the gate, to find the gate continuously, and I was standing at the gate the whole time. And so I am sharing that because these are the blind faux pas I make every day. It's a dumb crap I do as a blind person, and then it makes people feel less alone. Some people, of course, are like, oh, you're, for example, they may say like really stupid things like, well, you should have just asked someone for help. And that's where I appreciate that, but it's also the level of independence and stubbornness that I have. So I'm trying to do it by myself. The other side of that from a different viral video is I showcase the not so great ways in which a guide dog can be naughty. And one of those is I'm walking down a London street and my guide dog swipes a piece of pizza, and we get to the end of the street, and I realize I'm about to feed her a treat to be like, well done, you found the crossing, only to realize she had pizza in her mouth. So I had the pizza, and I tossed it out of the way, and I reprimanded her, and it was because I wanted to showcase that dogs, especially service dogs, especially assistance dogs, are still dogs. They're beings, and they make mistakes. And that went viral because people could relate to the fact that their service animals have off days, but also that dogs, especially Labradors, are ruled by their tummies. And so I just want to make sure that the content that I'm putting out is real. And I'm not, bearing in mind, by saying that statement, I'm not suggesting that anybody is not putting out real content. But for me, it's just letting people know that they're not alone, and that basically I make a lot of fails on the daily, and I want to make those people either smile, laugh, or cry in satisfaction that somebody else had a rubbish day.
When I used to live in London, I created a content series called Spilling the Accessibility. And
So cool.
thank you. It was supposed to be a way to bring kind of my Americanness out in like a very UK environment and kind of connect with the people that I was reaching at the time on something that we could all share and laugh about and have a good time. And it became an anchor for storytelling on my page, and it's something that has transcended kind of its original space where I would talk about locations and I would talk about experiences at those locations. And now it's how I share advocacy and education. It's also how I spill tea on my own life and talk about everything from dating to fashion faux pas. And it's a really fun little time. And it's probably a series that I'm the most proud of.
Well, I got 2 cats now, and this is for cats. I said, Emily, what are you doing? Like, oh, it's Devin.
Yeah, we have 2 cats that appear in the videos quite frequently.
Yeah,
Our probably the 2 most viral videos that we've had have been about Houston being a travel photographer. And somebody mentioned about negativity, gets attention. There's so many people that say, there's no way he can't be a photographer. No way he took that picture. No way he's, doing that. And I think our favorite slogan that we work with now is just prove them wrong.
I think for me, it's about vulnerability. I'm not afraid to be vulnerable in my writing. I think that's very important. We all have our own struggles that we go through, and I think people appreciate hearing about that. When traveling, there's a lot of different considerations to make as an autistic individual. So yeah, and the saying goes, if you met one autistic person, you only know one autistic person. So yeah, we're all very different. So I also make sure in my writing that I tell people that this necessarily doesn't translate over to everyone, but this is my strategies for traveling and the struggles I go through. So yeah.
I want to add one thing real quick. In the family space, I'm learning this recently, that people are more interested in how to travel than where to travel, because parents don't know that they can. They have no idea that they can take their kids with disabilities to explore new things because they don't know what's accessible. And so when I'm sharing things like track chairs or beach wheelchairs or things that give access to spaces that they didn't know were accessible, that's huge.
I'm curious about cost. And so it sounds to me like you guys are more or less agreed that there's probably a 2-night stay where you're going to come sort of for 3 days, 2 nights. And I'm curious about how much does this cost somebody? And if you're reluctant to give a precise, could you give a banding range?
Can I go first? Only because I'm from the UK, so it's so different. And the reason I say that is because if you're asking me to travel to New York, then at a minimum, I would expect the accommodation, the travel, and any sort of food allowance to be covered. That is my most basic rate. If then we are talking about the content itself, I'm happy to negotiate a much smaller price for more work, because I want to maintain the relationship with you. I don't want to charge extortionate amounts for just a one-off piece, because I want to create a relationship. But for me, if I'm being invited to your destination, those are the 3 caveats of you must pay for, because otherwise I'm working for you to be getting work for free. Does that make sense?
Hi, can I ask a question now? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Taylor Lee Aguilar. I just want to take a moment just to say a few things, because I resonate so much with each and every one of you. I've gotten to meet a couple of you last year, and now this year got to meet Sassy, and I want to meet everyone up there at the end. But I'd like to just say that, I lived life as an able-bodied person, although I had a visual impairment since I was 13, felt very alone in that. And it wasn't until I lost all of my vision that I realized that there was a community around us, around me, who were just, similarly going through struggles. Like, I could relate to them. And I guess I'm saying this because to be vulnerable, like these people are up here, is a strength. And I know each and every one of you have strengths and weaknesses and struggles. And I think, to be frank, this time in our world is very confusing, very complex. And Travelability, thanks to Jake and Trisha for having us all here and setting this all up, that this is a very safe and open space that people with disabilities aren't used to. And that the world of travel, when I was a sighted woman, was open to me. And people respected me because I was a person, and I came up to them. And I, just showed up. Now, as a woman with disability, they don't know how to talk to me. They don't know how to approach me. They don't know how to say hello. People are uncomfortable around me, and that is weird to me because I'm a very friendly person, and I have questions, and I have needs just like everyone else, and it's hard not to be angry at the world right now and to be angry with my situation, being totally blind, being a filmmaker and not being able to see things, not being able to see my own daughter, my partner who I've fallen in love with, we've never seen each other. But I connect with these people up here because they are being vulnerable and they are being transparent. And to be frank, I got a master's degree. And I went to one of the best film schools in the world on the most beautiful campus. And I got to see it all with my eyes, and now I don't. And now I'm on disability. And I make $570 because I worked only part-time as a full-time student. And now I don't qualify to get the SSI that is, $800+ in Colorado. That would make a difference, $300 would make a difference in my family. And now I have to prove myself to the world, and these people have to prove themselves every day, and we don't want to. It's exhausting to prove yourself. But somehow we're up here, they're sharing their stories, they're being vulnerable, they're saying what their honest experiences are in the world. And sometimes that's hard to hear because the world is cruel. They don't like us. They don't want to help us. They think it's a cost. If you're asking about money and you're asking about, no disrespect to the last person who asked the question, but if you're asking about money, that's the wrong way to go about this. These people deserve respect. They deserve just because they're humans. But guess what? We are mistreated all of the time, and we have to accept that because in order to make change, we have to just, suck it up sometimes. And then when we actually have a real issue and we take the courage, because it's hard to share, I'm shaking up here a little bit, it's hard. It's hard to do what they're doing and how they're expressing themselves. And it sucks because what if they get paid for that one excursion, that one experience, then they go back on disability? 80% of blind people are unemployed, not because they want to be. Look, we have you guys are looking for people to work for you. There are plenty of people who want to work, but they're not given a chance. So I want all of you to look at yourselves, look at your community, look at your families, look at how you, as able-bodied people, get to interact with the world, and then see that there is a big difference between us. And it's not right, but these people are on stage and they are being vulnerable and sharing their heartaches and their triumphs with the world in a real way. And that is something that we have the privilege of doing as disabled people in the modern age, when in other countries, there are people who are shamed to their basements and not let out because they are blind. And I was told that I had a curse on me and that I need to pray more and I need to, maybe really hope and that one day I can get my vision back. But you know what? I deserve respect as a blind person now. And I feel very much like this whole room, Travelability, Jake, Trisha, everything that you guys have done, this room is very powerful. The fact that you all are here, that we all got here, and we're all talking in a free country, that's big. And I want to commend you all for being here and listening, because that is the big thing, is listening to each other, having conversations. It's all nuanced, it's all different. I love what he just said, you meet one autistic person, you met one. That's for everyone. We are all unique. So I just want you all to really search yourselves so that we can really make a change in this world, because life is hard for us all. And if we don't help the people who are struggling most, what are we doing? Because when you lose your vision unexpectedly one day, what's there going to be for you? You don't even know a blind person? Well, get to know us because we're out there. So I don't know what the question is or what, but I just feel like, it's really hard.
You're good for now. I meet Ted all the time, and I mean every time. I live with Ted.
Yep.
Nice now because Sassy doesn't get to see expressions. We don't get to see your beautiful faces and your, maybe you don't think you're pretty, but you are. Like you get to look at yourselves in the mirror every day and see your beautiful, weird faces.
Well, yeah, they're dead about it.
Yeah.
I could lean into anger, but instead we're leaning into real love. This is what the world is. That's why you guys are here for hospitality, because you love people, not because of the bottom line.
Yes.
Yeah. I've been working in accessible travel since 1987, so I bring a real historic perspective on this. And I have to say, it's great to hear this panel. It's great that we have influencers now. We have people out here who are bringing this perspective. In 1997, I got a call from Holland America. I was with a group in New York called Society for Accessible Travel and Hospitality. And they said, we want you to recruit travel writers with disabilities of all types and come to Alaska and check out our ships and check out all our tours inland. I almost fell out of my chair. And then, of course, the next thing was to try to find travel writers with disabilities. So, of course, I wound up with a very diverse, great group, people with hearing loss, vision loss, a gentleman in a wheelchair. And I couldn't go to Alaska without taking my mother, who was 80, or I could never have gone home again. So she was representing the aged part of the community. And she had a great talent. She could hit her head on any kind of obstacle that was overhead. So if there was anything like that, Mother would find it. But we did everything. We did the ships. We went fishing. We went on the trains. We did everything. And to see that this now exists and that you have these people that you can easily find and use in your in your destinations is wonderful. Not just to get the word out on your accessibility, but also for what they bring for all the young people and people with disabilities who otherwise don't have that perspective and really don't feel the confidence to go and travel. So to me, this is such a wonderful panel. This is such a wonderful development for travel and tourism. And I encourage people, everybody in destinations to make use of them. And I don't know if this is the question for the panel, have you ever been included on regular fam trips? Because I also was part of a TV travel show out of New York for many years and traveled the world with groups. And I'm wondering if any of you have been included on a group of people without disabilities and been included that way. Thank you.
Thank you. For me, in terms of DMOs, I have not. All of mine have been individualized trips. I have gone on a trip with Disney before, where they have people without disabilities, and then I was on that as well. So that was my only experience, but it was a positive one. But Disney's pretty good about accessibility, and that was kind of twofold. They did a cruise and the parks, and made sure that they asked about my accommodation needs and were very accommodating along the way. But that's the only one I've personally experienced.
I've not worked with the destination, but I have been on a couple brand trips that have involved non-disabled people primarily, where I've been the only disabled person in attendance, and that's always been a very interesting experience, I would say. It's not always very inclusive, but again, it just comes back to communication and working with the people that you're working with and telling them your needs. Sometimes they'll be receptive of it, sometimes they won't. It really depends on who you're working with.
We went on a fam trip where Houston was the only one that was not a wheelchair user. Had 5 wheelchair users in Houston for that, and it was very eye-opening for us. Even being in the disability community for 26 years, we learned a whole lot. It was great for us. But just looking up here, I think we would make a great fam trip.
Woo!
Yeah, I have not been on any group-based fam trips so far, but yeah, not opposed to the idea, and yeah, you guys would be great to go with.
I have been on group trips with non-disabled people, and I find it quite refreshing because I'm sure everyone in this room, and especially everyone on stage, is so used to being the only disabled person in the room. So they end up learning a lot and I have like the 50,000 questions. And they're so polite though. They ask, can I ask a question? And I say, yeah. So by the end of it, I end up explaining the core base is that this disability is a spectrum. What is accessible to one person does not mean it's accessible to everyone. So that they end up going away with a new kind of lease of life and understanding and appreciation for what it's like to travel alongside a person with a disability. I do a lot of singular group trips, singular trips, fam trips and press trips, because I am focusing mainly on the accessibility of that. But I think it would be quite fun if you were to get like a really small group of some disabled and some non-disabled people, and then make them just do a fully accessible excursion or a fully accessible tour, just to see how they would react to, wow, okay, this place could be made accessible. I need to write about that, because I work alongside a lot of journalists. So for me, it's then the journalists are then sharing that in their magazines and newspapers, so it's spreading across, not just the person's platform, but the whole platform they're writing for.
I think it's a fabulous idea, and we are going to wrap it up there. But the good news is you can follow all of these people on social media and ask them any follow-up questions.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for sharing.
Thank you.